Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Beyonding podcast. I am Myra Capri. I'm joined here, of course, by my co host, the amazing Kailei Carr. And I am just honored. I think that's the word that's coming up for me. I'm honored to be co hosting this special episode today, where we're going to talk about many things. I'm not going to even give it a title yet. We feel like the title will come. I'm going to introduce our guest and we're just going to jump into this conversation. So, we are joined today by Dr. Miriam, a visionary thought leader, former pediatrician, and founder of Tipping Point Holistic Healing, now a soul purpose coach, inner child healer, and spiritual guide. She takes an intuitive, shamanic approach to help women heal the root of their dis-ease, reconnect with their true self, and rise in authenticity, joy, and purpose. And first of all, welcome, Dr.
Thank
Miriam.
you. Thank you. So good to be
Welcome.
here.
So happy to
Yay.
have you. So happy to have you.
So
I've
happy to
worked with
be
you.
here.
Yes, yes, yes. I've worked with you personally. So if I were to describe your work, I would say that you create space for deep emotional healing. And
Mm,
that's how I've experienced you.
mm.
If you were to describe your work outside of your bio, someone that's just meeting you, how would you describe the work that you do?
Very similar. I would say I create space for women, mostly women, not just women, but mostly women, that is feel safe and where there is trust in order for them to do the deep soul healing work that they desire.
Hmm.
And so I have found that um, the two sort of main foundations that are needed for the type of healing that many of us are seeking nowadays is safety and trust.
Mm.
And I have seen how, not just from my own personal healing journey, but from the clients that I work with, and seeing just how many people suffer from post traumatic stress disorder, how many people are literally living in complete fear and chronic stress and are unaware of it, first of all. And so, for me, being able to identify that that is sort of what is running in the background and hindering their their healing journey, right? So many people feel sort of will come to me feeling stuck or feeling like there's something wrong with them. They've usually tried many different healing modalities, therapy, for years, yoga. They've tried it all and sort of are still feeling stuck or burnt out or suffering from disease
Hmm.
and wanting more balance and harmony and joy and purpose in their life. And they just don't understand why they can't get better. And it it always surprises me how many people I work with who have worked with therapists and mental health professionals who aren't aware that they um, suffer from PTSD, for example, who don't know that they are in a state of chronic stress. So they're not familiar with what, and I know we're sort of just diving in, I guess this point. They're not
Yes, we're
familiar
here.
here. They're not familiar with the state of their being. They're not familiar with the state of their nervous system. And
Mm.
so that is truly blocking them from reaching the parts of themselves that they're wanting to reach. And so,
Mm.
yeah, so creating a container, a space for women where they feel safe and being able to build rapport and trust between myself and my clients is the most important thing. And for them to know that for me, I sort of lead with integrity and with my heart,
Yes, you do.
you know. Thank you.
How did you come like, how did you come to understand these things? Is this a
Right.
part of your own personal journey? I mean, you're a former pediatrician
Mhm.
and, turned healer, all things inner child work, soulful healing. How did you arrive at this place? How did you know it was necessary to do this work?
Thank you. It's a great question. When I was just reflecting on this morning, actually, just sort of chuckling to myself at like, what? This is my life. Like, I get to just do what I love. And I got to give myself permission to do what I do. Right. So that's number
Mm,
one. I gave myself permission to do what I do. I do a lot of the work that I do, or a lot of the work that I practice is work that others maybe have gotten like, and I'm a certified spiritual life coach, and of course, got to have this certification. We can talk about that later. But yes, I'm a certified life coach, but I practice work that therapists do, or others who have like special other mental health professionals that have specialized training and have trained for years, and that's something that I really grappled with in the beginning, like, who do I think I am to do this work? But the truth is that this work flows through me. It's my soul's offering, right? And I just have to get out of the way and allow myself to do, um, or to really to be who I am,
mm,
right? And so, yes, I started out in medicine. So just a little bit about my background. I started out in medicine. I trained in pediatrics. I just love, love, love children so much. That is my passion for the children of the world. And but I didn't stay in general pediatrics for very long. I went into public health. I really wanted to do global public health work, and so I did international emergency response work for almost a decade. And that took me all over the world, in conflict settings and war settings,
mm,
um, doing that emergency response work. So, mostly in disease prevention and control programs and their systems, setting up those systems. And after 10 years, I was working for the federal government, and I was completely burnt out. I was just running, 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 doing just very high stress work in high stress environments. And I began experiencing, anxiety and depression and physical disease. And I just was miserable. I just realized like, oh, something doesn't feel right. I need a change. And I was feeling more and more restricted and constricted. And that just did not feel aligned with my spirit,
mm.
And so I began asking the questions that most people who I work with begin to ask themselves, like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? Am I just literally just, I climbed the ladders, I got the medical degree, I got the master's in public health and so many other certifications, tropical medicine. I mean, just it's a long resume, but I still had this feeling of like discontentment, and I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt like something was missing. And so that took me out of. I made the. Am I frozen? I'm frozen. Sorry.
That's okay. We can still hear you.
Okay. Um, okay. So I decided to leave the federal government, and I went into pharma for a couple of years. And while I was in pharma, at first I was like, I'm not sure if I should be in pharma, but it was all part of my journey, right? Like really understanding the healthcare system, understanding the systems of health that are meant to keep us healthy, right?
Mm,
And beginning to see sort of the gaps that existed in those systems was really important for where I am today. And so while I was in pharma, I really stepped into spirituality, and I started delving into Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, looking into mind body practices, energy psychology. What is that? Like, really trying to understand the subconscious, and reading books about so many books about mind body connection and subconscious and energy medicine, right? And understanding what holistic health looks like, what integrative medicine looks like, where we're not just treating the physical body, but we're looking at the whole being, so the mental and the emotional and the spiritual as well. And so while I was on that path, um, which really began about eight years or so ago, um, I started to understand the depth of healing that was being called for
Mm.
within myself, right? And really beginning to understand the root of my burnout and disease. And it was truly disconnection from myself and rejection of myself.
Mm.
So I just rejected myself for so long, and I uncovered sort of trauma from childhood that I had blocked for over 40 years.
And
That I just, yeah.
yeah, you mentioned the word inner child healer in your bio. I'm familiar with the term, but some people listening may not know what that means. Like, how would you define inner child? And how did you know that your inner child needed healing? Like, you were talking about the rejection of yourself. How did you connect the dots that that's what actually needed the healing?
Yeah. So, well, once I began, sort of meditation, and I was working with a spiritual life coach at the time, and I uncovered my childhood trauma, I began to understand the different layers of my personality, right? I began to understand um, the parts of myself that I thought were me, but were in fact not really who I was,
Mm,
Mm.
right? And so that's when I came across sort of parts, what people call parts work in the mental health world, in psychology, psychiatry, in parts work. And it sort of just happened naturally, right? I didn't study parts work or anything, but just by doing the trauma healing work, I began to understand the different parts of me. And then I understood, oh, well, there are all these parts of me that I have created to protect me. So which part of me are they trying to protect? And
mm,
well, that was my inner child, right? So that's like the youngest part of me that still had her innocence, her purity, her joy, playfulness, creativity, her light, that part of me
mm,
that wasn't really shining through me fully in life. So by understanding and working with the various parts of myself is where I discovered my inner child, right? And then I realized, oh, there's like a whole field on inner child healing. But it really happened through my own healing, right? And so I began and communicating with my inner child through letters and journaling. And at first, I really couldn't communicate with her much at all. She was terrified to come out. Like, I didn't feel safe, I guess, in my body for her to appear. And so she didn't for a while, but um, I just kept wanting to meet her. I just kept showing up. I kept creating space for myself to go inward and connect with her. And then slowly, slowly, I started to. And I would write, sort of do what's called automatic writing, where I was just journaling, get into a meditative state and just ask her to speak through me. And then I would just start journaling, and she would talk to me and tell me how she was really feeling. Right. And I was still working with the coach at the time. And so that is sort of how I stumbled upon my inner child. And then once I became certified to be a life coach and I began coaching, I noticed very quickly that God was sort of leading me to inner child healing work, because in every single session, I would have these incredible breakthroughs with my clients around connecting and healing their inner child.
Mm.
And I was like, I see what you're doing, God, like every single
Mhm.
session. And it just would happen so naturally, and it was so easy. And then I connected the dots of like, oh, right. I was a pediatrician, like I love children. And now I say I work with children in different realms because I do.
Mm.
So the work that I do, I really take a shamanic approach, which is working, with the soul. It's just like soul level healing. It's working with spirit, God, um, to support our healing, right? And so um, it is really what you would hear called as soul retrieval, which is a shamanic approach or practice for healing, which is soul retrieval. So what happens is when we experience trauma, which I show me a person who hasn't, right? I think we're all sort of used to just like the big T trauma, right? Like war or natural disaster. And so people are really hesitant to even admit or say that they've experienced trauma, right? Because my trauma is not as bad as that their trauma, right? But trauma is trauma, and it feels the same in the body, whether it's war or it's surgery,
Wow.
right? Or it's physical abuse or emotional neglect. Like it feels the same in the body.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it feels the same in the body. And what happens when we experience trauma is a piece of our soul fragments,
Mm.
right? And every time we experience trauma, a piece of our soul fragments and is sort of stuck in time and space, right? So, as an example, as a child, I experienced trauma, and so a piece of me, and yeah, so a piece of me was stuck in time and space at maybe 8 years of age,
Mhm.
right? And then say at 12 or 13, if I experience another trauma, say my parents, and this is just an example, like say my parents go through a divorce and that's very traumatic for me. Now at 13, another piece of my soul sort of fragments. And so you can imagine over our lifetime, not even talking about past lives here, but just imagining over this lifetime, how much soul fragmentation happens.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so I always tell people, like, you feel like something is missing in your life because there is. There's literally pieces of your soul stuck in time and space, and I'm going to help you go retrieve them. And
Ooh.
that's where the safety and the trust is really important,
Mm.
right? Because people will come out of these my sessions with them like, I feel like I just went somewhere. And I'm like, you did. We traveled, and we usually go back in time and we connect with their inner child at whatever age wants to show up during that session, and I help them integrate that piece of themselves back into their heart, into their
Mm.
soul, right? So a part of them feels less fragmented, and then we continue to bring the pieces together, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. Like I try to explain to people, like people come, they're like, I want to heal my inner child, and I want to be healed. I want my child to be healed by the time we're done, and I think there's a misperception around what inner child healing is and even what healing is, right? So if we talk about just like what is healing, to heal means to be whole. That's
Mm.
it. To be
Wow.
whole. And in order to be whole, we need to be integrated mind, body, spirit, physical. No,
Mm.
mind, sorry. We need to be integrated with our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, right? Because we're not just our physical body. So, and to integrate all our bodies, all parts of ourselves takes time. Like it took time to get to this point where we're so fragmented. And, we haven't even talked about sort of our beliefs and the work that I do around helping my clients reprogram beliefs and shifting their mindset, which is another part of the mental body work that I support them with, right? So, you tack on trauma, you tack on all the conditioning and subconscious limiting beliefs that are sort of running in the background, right? You tack on our spiritual disconnection
Mm.
and then the state of our physical health, which we all know is terrible. I mean, at least in the United States, globally, like it's
Yeah.
terrible, right? So you tack all that on, and it's like, realistically, you're not going to be healed in 4 sessions. So I think it's
Right.
important to set expectations. And also, I remind people that we're working with children here, and my role is to support and protect the children. That
Mm.
means the
Mm.
child parts of you, and I feel that that's one of the reasons that um, the people who find me and come to me do is that there's a part of them that feels safe with me, and I feel that their inner child like sees me maybe before they
Yeah.
even do, and it's like, okay, we're safe here. We're safe to be all of ourselves here,
Mhm.
or maybe in other settings haven't been. And so I tell them like, you can't rush the process because essentially you're rushing. Would you rush a child to like hurry up and heal that broken arm or get over
Yeah.
that cold? Like you wouldn't, right? So I sort
Mm.
of take the same approach. And but that's speaking of the state of the healthcare system and sort of medicine in general, which I know we talked about before we got on the call. That is what we have been taught, right? The system is set up for sort of quick fixes,
Mm.
right? Quickly just put a band-aid on it and get back out there, right? The system is set up for us to quickly get better so that we can go back to productivity.
Right. Right. I would love to pause you here because I'm just taking in all of your story and how remarkable it is through your journey in medicine and the international emergency response work, and then having these, basically your body saying we can't do this anymore, you expanding your consciousness, and ultimately what it sounds like is that you arrived back at yourself.
Mhm.
And what I marvel about those of us who have been called to do greater work in this world, those of us who have been called to elevate our consciousness, to bring our light, to bring more healing to the world. Ultimately, the byproduct is that there is more healing into the world.
Right.
It requires us to do our own work. And what I think is so important about your particular work is that there's always something in our childhood. Everybody has different experiences, and even those of us who had a quote unquote good childhood had trauma start somewhere
Right.
earlier in life. And what a beautiful gift you are to be able to um, hold that space for people,
Mm.
right? To create a container for them to come back to themselves. Um, So I guess one question I have for you is, do you think, and that's an assumption, like what I just shared is what I'm processing and what's coming to me, but I'm curious in your work with inner children
Mm-hmm.
and this beautiful work that you're doing, do you believe that? Do you believe that we all have to start there?
Mm.
Or are there people who, maybe their childhood was quote unquote good and it was good and there's nothing for them to find in their childhood and maybe the work that they need to do is an adult in adulthood. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Beautiful question. Yeah, and I love that you brought in consciousness because I always say consciousness is freedom, right? Because I feel that most of us are walking around on autopilot and we don't even know it, right? And that autopilot is essentially those parts I spoke of earlier running the show,
Mm.
right? Those parts of us that are
Yeah.
wanting to protect ourselves. And so if you just ask yourself, like, who am I? Like, people are so attached to their personalities, right? I am Miriam, or I'm Myra, I'm Kailei, like, and this is my personality, right? And we identify so much with our personalities. But when you really peel back the layers, what you'll discover is that the foundation of our personalities is not on solid ground, right? It's super shaky.
Ooh.
That our personalities, for the most part, have been created as a protective mechanism, as a protective response to the world that began in childhood. So almost all of our childhood beliefs, I mean, most of our beliefs in general stem from our childhood up until the age of 7.
Mm.
So by the age of 7, we're pretty solidified in how we view the world. So up until that point, as children, we are like sponges, right? And the state of our brain waves and the physiology of our brain in child development says that we are simply absorbing from our surrounding. So we're observing, and through our senses, right, we're learning about the world, what's right, what's wrong, and we're um, begin categorizing the world, right? And so it's from that childhood that most of our beliefs stem from. I would say all our beliefs stem from, right? And so if we are working on the assumption that our beliefs create our reality, which there's um, many thought leaders out there, and even um, quantum physics and quantum science that supports that, right? That our beliefs create our reality. Well, and most of us are living in a state of dis-ease and disharmony and discontentment. Well, then we have to go back to our belief systems. We have to look at our belief systems, and those belief systems originated in childhood. So,
Mm.
yes, I do believe that we all must journey to our inner child at some point in our healing, because if we're desiring higher states of consciousness and more joy and more creativity and purpose and passion in our lives, which is what most people want, right? They want more joy. They want to feel fulfilled and have purpose. They want to feel alive.
Mm.
Well, if you ask people, when was the last time you felt that way? Most people will tell you when they were a child, or give me an example of what that looks like. It would be a child, right? Because children are free, their spirits are free, and they're playful, and they're joyful, and they live in the present, right? And something happens to them, and they, in 1 second, they're on to the next, right? Like, they don't live in the past, they live in the present. They're not worried about what's going to happen. They're in the here and now, right? And so yes, if what we desire is higher states of consciousness, if it's joy, if it's peace, if it's playfulness, if it's creativity, if it's passion and purpose, if it's balance, we must do inner child healing work, because I deeply believe that that is the gateway to higher states of consciousness. Because our inner child is, if you think about it, the closest to our true essence. And that is what we're here to do. That is what we're here to be. We are
Mm,
here to be our true essence.
mhm.
We've got
Yeah.
become so disconnected from our true essence.
Yeah.
Mm.
And too serious.
Mm,
Way too
Too
serious.
serious.
Way
mm,
too serious,
Yes.
right? And so we're so serious about who we think we are. We're so serious about our personalities. We've put ourselves in all these boxes of who we're supposed to be and who we've been told that we are and when does that happen? From a young age, right?
Yeah.
People will often see a child, notice something about their behavior, their quality, and these are incredible multidimensional beings, which we all are, right? Who are really embodying what that means. Children embody what it means to be multidimensional, right?
mm,
We
Mhm.
see them in their multidimensionality, and maybe we notice, oh, this one is likes to draw, and we say, wow, you're going to be an artist when you grow up, right? We begin conditioning them, right? Or
Yeah.
we see someone who really loves numbers and they're just really into numbers, and we say, wow, you're going to be an engineer when you grow up, aren't you? And then another child loves to play with their dolls and like dress them up and is super nurturing and sweet and loves to help around the house. Well, you're going to be a nurse if it's a female, right? You're going to be a nurse, or sometimes they'll say you'll be a doctor,
mm.
but right. And so it begins, right? So
Yeah.
we begin labeling and categorizing children based on what they are showing us, when in reality they are simply in flow. They are moving through life, exploring and experiencing the different parts of themselves. And so in this season they may be into that, but in the next season they may be into something else. But once we begin praising them for like, oh, you're really good at math, or oh, you're so helpful, like you're going to be a healer, a doctor or nurse. Children, being the smart, incredibly intelligent beings that they are, they say, oh, mommy, daddy seemed really happy when they said that I was going to be a doctor. Everybody
Mhm.
got really excited about me being a doctor, right? Or if they're a writer and
Mm,
they love to write, and they're spending days writing, and their parents say, oh, you got to put that stuff away, like that's not going to make you any money. Like they learn, oh, it's not safe to be who I am.
Mm.
I'm supposed to be somebody else. So that's where it begins, right? That's where we begin rejecting our true selves. And
mm.
so
Yeah.
I don't care who it is, every single one of us has a story. I have so many clients who will say they had a great childhood and then finish the sentence with, but, my parents used to fight all the time, or, I went to Catholic school, and their experience is there. And so it's really interesting. I find
Mm,
it's really subconscious. We're not even aware of our state of being. So I love to help people first become aware of your state of being.
that's good. So many things there. I wonder. So when I first met you, Miriam, it was about a year before I actually started working with you. And
Yeah.
I joke because I jokingly say I was scared of you. Like
Mm,
there was this deep, connection of just, I felt like you saw things about me. I felt like you were very clear. And maybe subconsciously, I wasn't ready. Maybe I was afraid. And I think about just my own personal upbringing, my own personal story. I was, brought up very religious. I was churched. And I think a lot of my philosophies and understandings about life and how you navigate life came from church. And it brought me to where I am today. So there's, nothing that I'm saying is bad about it, but it definitely conditioned me to think a certain way. And so for those that may be conditioned to think a certain way, very conventional, very maybe traditional, very religious, how would you, offer or invite someone to maybe start thinking differently about this type of work? You
Okay.
know, is it spiritual? Is it, psychological? Is it both? And if it's someone is really religious, how can they still do this work?
Yeah.
How would you invite them in that space to think about even opening themselves to it?
Yeah. That's a great question. Thank you, Myra. And so the first thing that came through as you were speaking was that I noticed that the one thing that religion and healthcare, the healthcare system, have in common are that they taught us that external authority is more important than our inner authority.
You better come with it. You better come with it. Patriarchy.
Right. So they taught us that we are powerless,
Yep.
that our power is outside of us, and that we must look outside of us for the answer, for the savior. Yeah. So from for many of us, if it's not religion, if it's not the church, it's healthcare and the medical system, where we have been kept in a constant state of victimhood. We have been taught that we are helpless and powerless. And maybe we've experienced things in our lives where we have felt helpless and powerless. And as children, we often do, right? What child doesn't feel powerless, right? To an extent. And so, but that message that is not true, first of all, but the message is reinforced through all the systems that are around us, whether it's the schools or the healthcare or the church. Okay. So that's the first thing, is recognizing that we've been taught to ignore our inner authority. We have been taught that God is outside of us, not within us, or that we are even an aspect of God, right? We have not been taught that our primary purpose in life is to embody our divinity here on earth, because that is who we are. That's it. That's your purpose. Like, spoiler alert, like
Right.
party popper. That's it. It's so simple, it's so simple.
Yes.
So we've been taught that it's not within us, right? So I see that, and I have literally wept once I uncovered this truth for myself. And it's something you truly have to uncover for yourself. It's not something that I can tell you or tell somebody else who is hell-bent on believing what they want to believe. So if there's someone is super religious and is not open to exploring the truth on their own, because what religion does is it feeds you the truth. And the truth is that you have to uncover the truth within yourself. So anytime someone tells you, I have the truth and I'm going to tell it to you, that should be a red flag for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That should be a red flag.
Mhm.
Anytime someone, I remember somebody once asked me, I think Kylie, you were around, but they said, well, what is the truth? They thought I knew the truth. And I do know the truth. I know my truth.
Right.
And I told them, well, that's a great question. And you should explore that.
Mm.
Right. So being mindful of gurus or teachers, anyone who tells you that they know the truth and that they're going to tell you what that truth is. If someone is not encouraging you to explore the truth within yourself for yourself, to test it out on your own, then that's a red flag, right?
Mm.
So that is what the church does. And I have literally wept thinking about connecting with all the people who suffer in this world because they are waiting for somebody to save them.
That
Yes.
part.
They're literally waiting, and it breaks my heart. They are waiting for somebody to save them. They're thinking, I've been a good girl or boy. Why isn't it coming yet?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that they desire, they're feeling that their prayers aren't answered, and thinking that they've done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they're just waiting for they're another person or God to save them. And healthcare does the same thing. It just empowers you. It tells you about you. It tells you that your body is broken. It tells you that you have a chronic condition that is lifelong. It tells you that you must be on medication for your whole life. It tells you all these things, but it doesn't tell you the stories of the people who have healed supposedly terminal illnesses or chronic conditions. You don't hear those stories, but they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
They're out there, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes I laugh to myself and I say, I believe in magic. I believe in miracles. But I believe I am the miracle. I believe we are the miracles,
Yes.
right? Because God is within us.
Yep.
And so because God is within me, that means that same creative potential that created all that is lives within me. That ability to heal myself and be healed and experience miraculous healing is within me. That's what Jesus showed us.
Mm.
But
Yes.
that's a whole other topic, right? That's within me. And
Yes.
so, but what we do is that most doctors tell you, you have 6 months to live. And most people believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we put the authority on that external person.
Right. Right.
And when you think about the levels of consciousness, which is, the heart
Yep.
of a lot of the work that I do,
Yeah.
the lowest level of consciousness in existing is feeling powerless. You don't recognize the power that you have. The highest level of consciousness is that we see that our power is infinite.
That's right.
Because we are co-creating with the ultimate creator.
Yeah.
That's right.
So religion and our healthcare systems, the foundation is actually in what you're saying, in that lowest level of consciousness,
It's
the
in the lowest level.
unconscious state. And that's
That's right.
why, it's heartbreaking. It's
It's
heartbreaking.
heartbreaking. If you think about it, and I've had those moments throughout my healing journey where I've said, genius. That's actually a genius system that y'all created. Whoever the y'all
Yes.
is,
Yep.
whoever the y'all
Yes.
is, I'm like, that was good. Like, keep us in victimhood,
Mm.
Yep. And what
thinking that we're
happens when we do
powerless.
that? Yes.
We're
Mhm.
easily controlled, manipulated,
Yeah.
right? And the systems, they continue to thrive off of our perception
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
of brokenness, our
Yes.
own
Yes.
perception of brokenness. They continue to thrive off of that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
But so we don't hear the stories of people who hear you have 6 months to live and they say, that's bullshit. And
Right.
they go off on their own healing journey and they heal whatever it is. I mean, there
Mhm.
is an incredible woman, Anita Moorjani. I just love her story. She has a book called Dying to Be Me that was one of the many books that I read. I'm frozen again, but I guess when I say talk about really exciting things, I mess up the
The
electronics.
energy.
Yeah.
The internet
So
can't handle it.
we can't handle it. So
Mhm.
she wrote about that. She had terminal cancer, and she healed from that. She got to the root after having a near-death experience. And
Mhm.
so I love that you brought up the map of consciousness, Kailei, because I think, you know, research is even now pointing to the effects of emotions on our health, on health and health
Yes.
outcomes, right? And emotions are energy, right? So emotions are energy. Energy and emotion are emotions. And emotions also carry different frequencies, right? So if emotions also are energy, like we are all energetic beings, then they carry a frequency or a vibration. And different emotions carry different frequencies, right? And higher frequencies being around joy and peace, lower being fear, guilt, shame. And we're beginning to see how that affects cancer, cancer outcomes, and other health conditions, chronic conditions. And so my work is sort of like a medical detective. And it's funny because the public health training I did, we were called disease detectives.
Mm.
And it's
Mm.
actually the work that I do now is that is sort of, I am sort of like a disease detective. And I use sort of my intuitive skills to feel into the person's energy body, connect with their disease, their conditions, and I'm able to identify like where they're sort of carrying certain emotional blocks in their body. And so people will just come to me and say, oh, that they have, you know, lower back pain. And I'll say, well, tell me about it, you know, and then they'll describe it, and to me it's all in the words, right? And it's like, wow, what a gift. Your body is actually showing you what needs healing,
Mm.
right? And I said, if only we could begin to see our bodies and the physical ailments and the pain that we experience as gifts, if we can begin to see them as gifts, as teachers, as visitors, I call them visitors,
Mm.
that come to our house to show us something that can help us.
Yeah.
And I said to someone once, if a visitor knocked on your door, normally you open the door and you say, hey, you know, and maybe you welcome them into your home, right? But if someone comes to your door and they're maybe looking a little disheveled, um, yeah, they're just looking a little disheveled, maybe not so put together, and they knock on your door, and maybe you look out the door and you're like, ooh, maybe close the blinds, like pretend nobody's home, you know?
Mhm.
And but what if that person was coming to tell you that your garage door was open, right?
Mm.
But you've shut that person out because of the way they look. It's the same thing we do with our physical
Mm.
ailments, right? We feel pain and we're like, oh, that's ugly. I don't like that. I want that to go away. But
Yeah.
that pain has an incredible message for us, right? That and so if we could just, I often tell people, if we could just remember that everything is coming from love to love for
For
love,
Mhm.
right? For love, then how can I shift my relationship with myself, with my body, with what it's trying to tell me? So if this pain isn't actually trying to hurt me, but it's actually trying to help me, and it's actually love in disguise as pain,
Whew.
then what's it trying to tell me?
Mhm.
Right. And so I help people like sort of shift their relationship with their disease. Um, and I once was got the message, you know, from God that said, cancer is the answer. And I said,
Ooh.
well, if cancer is the answer, what's the question?
Ooh.
Ooh.
And the question was, where am I living in fear?
Wow.
Miriam.
Wow, you better.
Yeah.
Wow.
Miriam.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Let me tell you, I have
Ooh.
a great friend of mine who unfortunately lost her battle with cancer fairly recently. Um,
I'm sorry.
had breast cancer when she was in her 20s. And I remember having a conversation with her soon thereafter, after she had a lumpectomy. And she said, I
Mm.
know why I got it. I know why I got it. I was in this toxic relationship, and I know that this was the result of the toxicity in that relationship.
Mm.
And she
Mm.
said, my heart was so
Mhm.
torn.
Mhm.
So there's so
Mhm.
much truth in that from love to love for love.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
one thing that you're reminding me of that I feel like what you're saying is reinforcing is my daughter who we met through our kids who shared a kindergarten class, and I'm so grateful for that
So
moment
grateful
because it
too.
brought us together.
Mm.
And my daughter has, she's not a sickly child, but she's very tapped in and tuned into her body.
Mhm.
So she'll come to me and say, Mom, my stomach hurts, or I feel a little nauseous, or I'm feeling this. I feel dizzy. I feel this. So she is a feeler.
Mm. Mhm.
And I'm realizing that I think a part of it is that she's very sensitive.
So
So
glad you
what
brought this up.
so I started asking her, well, what do you think your body's trying to tell you? And what
Mhm.
do you think you need? So
That part.
giving her the agency to tap into her body. And sometimes she'll say, I just need to lay down. Okay, how about
Mm.
you lay down? Because I don't want to condition her to think, oh, well, mom is going to fix this, or let's go to
Mhm.
the doctor to fix this. Now, not to say that doctors can't help and mom can't help and all of that, but if she can tune into what her body is telling her and what it needs, then I feel like she will be better equipped in her life.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. I do the same thing with my son. Thank you for sharing that. It is so important. I'm so glad you brought it back to the children, because that is another area that, of course, I'm very passionate about. And also, with my spiritual gifts and abilities, I've been able to tap into the consciousness of the children.
Mm.
Mhm.
And the children, especially the young children now that continue to be born, are highly sensitive children. So if we remember, we talked about us sort of through inner child work, remembering who we are, that we are here as spiritual beings having human experience, meant to bring our divinity on earth, meant to experience heaven on earth, right? Meant to be the miracles that we are. So if we're remembering that, if you remember the children, they know that, right? And so the consciousness of the planet is such now that the energy is supportive for these children to be who they are, right? It's more supportive for them than maybe it was for us,
Mm.
the consciousness that we're in now, right? We are sort of shifting the consciousness of the planet from more of a fear based consciousness to more of a love, unity based consciousness. And so the environment is supportive for these children.
Mm.
What is really important is that the parents and other caregivers, teachers, etc., of these children are also aware of what's going on. It's really important that they're aware that these children are highly sensitive beings who are very tapped into the energy field of this planet, who are very tapped into their multidimensional They're very tapped in. And so energetically, what that might look like is, attention deficit disorder, behavioral issues or challenges, sensory processing issues. And I know, my son has sensory processing issues. And in the beginning, I was very much, having trained in medicine, conventional medicine. I was very attached to fixing him. I thought that something was wrong, and that he needed fixing. And everything shifted when I shifted my perspective and understood the purpose of these children. These children are here. They carry the blueprint of the frequency of love that is here on this earth.
Wow.
They carry the blueprint for the solutions to the problems in the world today. They carry the solutions. And it breaks my heart to see the way that these children are being treated. Not only are they being abused physically, emotionally, but they're also institutionalized, shut down. These are literally incredibly wise, sacred souls that have come to earth to help us if we let them.
If we let them.
If we let them. And so I'm really passionate about helping adults, parents, teachers, whomever understand that what these children need is really the most important thing that they have shared with me is for us, the adults, to do the work, to do our healing. Because they're so tapped in to the energetic field that they can feel everything. They can feel everything that we're feeling. And the issue with that, though that is a gift, one of their gifts, which we all have, by the way, also maybe for another time, or later in the conversation, I don't know. But the issue with that is they don't yet understand the difference between what's theirs and what's not. And so what I do in my healing work with adults is helping them heal from emotional wounds that they picked up in childhood that they weren't even theirs to begin with, that they agreed to carry throughout their life because they thought that that was their job. So when I ask them what we can do to help them, and this is sort of in meditation, right? And speaking to the consciousness of the children, what can we do to help you? Said, we need to clean up shop. Like, we need to do our work. That's how we can help them, right? Because so long as we feel that we are broken and we need to be fixed, we will be projecting that onto them. So the moment I realize I am not broken, actually, I don't need fixing, that I am entirely whole just as I am, I began to see my own son that way. And guess what? Things began to shift. And also, I began to understand that what looks different, weird, unusual to us is actually sacred. So I got this beautiful message that what looks scary is actually sacred. So understanding that they're navigating their gifts and their sensitivities. So the question really becomes like, how can we support them navigate those? So that's so beautiful, Kailei, that you're able to do that for her, to encourage them to continue to tap into themselves and to begin to ask themselves, their bodies, what do I need in this moment? What would be supportive for me? Because they're navigating the shift of the energy, right? We all are, those of us that are attuned, we're all sensitive, right? But not all of us are attuned to our sensitivities. So those of us that are attuned to our sensitivities are all experiencing the shift in this time. And so are our children. And so knowing that nothing's wrong, they're recalibrating their bodies. They know exactly what to do. Their bodies know what to do. Our bodies know what to do. We just need to listen.
Yes.
It's so true. We could talk about so many things.
So many.
Um, I wonder about our audience and those that may be interested in, starting doing this healing work. And I noticed the words you use, like we're not broken, but earlier you said we may be fragmented. It may be just some fragments that we're going back to retrieve, right? And we're not um we don't need fixing, right? And
Nothing's wrong.
nothing's wrong. But healing is required. There may need to be some healing.
Yeah.
How would we open this up to those that may be interested in that? Has never done this work. Where do you get started?
So great question. And I think you're sort of alluding to that earlier too about the church and things. So first is just, if you're curious and you're open and you're beginning to ask the questions, who am I? And wanting to see a shift or change in your life and you just don't know where to start. I'd really encourage people to first connect with their networks, to see, what are the resources that are out there. First, explore what's out there, right? You don't have to do it my way. There's no one way. And that's part of the problem to begin with, right? Is this conformity. And we see that in spirituality and healing as well. There's no one path for healing. So really encouraging people not to do it the way that everyone else is necessarily doing it, but to explore what is out there and tune into your body, into your spirit, and ask, what feels right for me? Right. And so, again, if we just go to the two foundations for healing, safety and trust, finding people that you feel safe around and that you trust. And if there's even an inkling in you that says, oh, I don't know about this person, that's a no. That's you got to trust your intuition. And it may not be clear to you in this moment why that feeling is there, but it's there and you must trust it. So I would really encourage people to just explore. There's so much out there. I think the energy psychology modalities, any modality that works with the subconscious, and inner child healing is that as well, is really helpful. And that is what is really required at this time, right? Because so much, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And most of us are in therapy talking about the things that we know. And then it's been 10 years and we're like, nothing has changed. Well, that's why. Not only do you not know what you don't know, sadly, the therapists also, they don't know what they don't know. It's not a knock on therapists, it just depends on who's out there. So I really recommend that people always ask me, like, can you help me find a therapist or somebody? I always say, look at their bio, look to see what the therapist themselves has done in terms of their own healing, because you can't take people where you haven't gone yourself. So if a healer is out there who hasn't done their own healing, soul level healing, they won't be able to guide you through that. So part of the reason I'm able to guide people through the depth of healing that I do is because I have done that depth of healing myself and continue to.
Yes.
I don't believe that I'm healed, but I'm done trying to heal. There's a difference. And I think we're all trying to heal and making it a job. And that's part of the problem as well. And that also feeds into the belief that we're broken and that something is wrong. And it's all subconscious. We don't realize we're doing it. But these are things I want to help people see, that by making yourself the project that you must fix, you are reinforcing the belief that there's something wrong with you. And that's what that inner child hears. And that's what every single cell in your body hears. And guess what? It responds to that. So if you take anything seriously, I think I said this in a recent post, take your worth seriously. The rest, just try to have fun, even in your in your healing journey. Try to have fun, make friends with your parts, give them names, have a party with them, have a little tea party, you know, bring in some creativity, bring in,
Party with your parts.
yeah, party with your parts. Yes, I love that. Love that. You know, like, let's stop having so many workshops. Let's start having play shops. You know, that's something I
Yes, play
definitely
shops.
want to
Mhm.
support, you know, is more play shops. People are like, what does that even mean? I don't know how to play.
Yeah,
Let's have some play
love
shops.
it.
Let's have some play shop. Like, everyone's going to workshops, and you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
for the most part, people are like, you know, not all workshops are do people
Right.
dread, but you know, when you hear a workshop, you know, that's more
It
work.
has an energy. It has a certain energy. Play shop,
Right.
like sign me up. So,
Yes.
Sign
Dr.
you up.
Miriam, I
Yes,
know
Myra.
that there are people listening right now who are feeling called to explore working with you more. So, how can they connect with you to explore if you are the right person for them in their healing journey?
Sure. So people can reach out to me. My website's tippingpointhealing.com, and I have a link to sign up for a 30-minute discovery call. And I'm happy to speak with them about um, my approach and the different options for coaching that I have available.
Yeah. This has been so good.
Yeah.
I just, there was so much more we could have explored.
There's so much more, I know.
This
And
won't be the last time.
No.
right.
This will
And
not
it's
be the last time.
the tipping point. I think that's a very critical name in this
Yes, this is
conversation.
just a tip.
It's
Mhm.
just a tipping point. If this stirred up something in you, which I know it does in me every time I encounter and get to spend sacred time with Dr. Miriam, you're not alone. So definitely start that inward journey work. Check out the show notes. We'll share Dr. Miriam's information. And I, invite you all to listen to this, to share this, to tap into what feels like going beyond in your own journey, because this is beyonding. Thank you.
This is
Yes.
beyonding.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Dr.
much.
Miriam.
Thank you both so much. What an honor it's been. And yeah, it's just been an honor. I really look forward to doing this again soon.
Yes.
Same here. Take care.
Be well, everyone.